Tomato canning season has just started in my kitchen and I couldn't be happier about that. Welcome to Garden Preserve. I'm Carter. I'm so glad you're here today. Let's get started. So, in the beginning of the season, you get a little bit coming in. So I could either have put this in the freezer, waited to do some crushed tomatoes or some diced tomatoes or tomato sauce or some big project. But you know what? I have 2.5 pounds of tomatoes and by golly, I'm gonna make something with them and get it on the shelf. So I have been looking for recipes and I stumbled across one that looked fantastic. It's called tomato jam. Now I make a tomato jam just, in the everyday kind of thing, and it's great. It's not one for canning though, so I found one for canning. It has 5 stars from 42 people. So I think we're going to be good to go on this one. I actually have to do a half batch because it calls for 5 pounds of tomatoes, but we're going to do 2.5 pounds of tomatoes and do a half batch. And I don't know what that's going to get me. Probably not too much. Maybe 4 or 5 quarter pints. I don't know. We'll see. It doesn't matter. Tomato canning season has started. So let's get this underway. All right. The tomatoes are chopped. That's 2.5 pounds of Roma tomatoes, paste tomatoes. Now I'm going to add a teaspoon of freshly grated ginger. That doesn't seem like a whole lot to me, but we're going to see if I get carried away or not. I'm going to post this recipe and a link for you down below. I'm certain we'll get a taste test before it goes in the canner. We're going to call that a teaspoon of fresh ginger. May have been just a little bit more than that. And we're going to get sugar. I'm using allulose because my husband is sugar free. But it calls for, if you're doing a half batch like I am, 1 3/4 cups of sugar. So I'm going to go a little bit short on that and we'll taste it later. And I'm going to use that allulose, like I said. And then different recipe that I found that kind of came in second in the recipe search called for light brown sugar, and I thought that sounded so good, so I'm just going to add a touch of molasses. And we'll call that light brown sugar. All right, the next thing we need is lime juice. For my half batch, I'm going to use 4 tablespoons of lime juice. The other recipe that I was considering used lemon juice, so if that's all you have, you can use that. Lime juice, ginger, cinnamon. Let's do a teaspoon. Let me see. I have to remember to cut this in half. I'm terrible at that. Half a teaspoon of cinnamon. This is a half teaspoon measure, so we'll do that. And 1/4 teaspoon of ground cloves. It smells so good to me. It smells like fall. 1/4 teaspoon of ground cloves. Half a tablespoon of salt. Kind of sounded like a lot to me, but we'll see. Let's see. So I'm going to use 1.5 teaspoons to get half a tablespoon. So we'll use 3 of these. Okay. And half a tablespoon of red chili flakes. I think these are the magic. So I'll use 3 of these again. 1, 2, 3. I don't think this is going to be a very spicy recipe. There'll be a little bit of spice, a little bit of sweet, but I will taste it before it goes in the jars and I'll let you know. It will of course mellow out as it sits on the shelf. Probably 4 weeks is usually what they say, 4 to 6 weeks. But we'll kind of know that by how spicy it is when it goes in. So now all I'm going to do is put this on the stove and we are going to let it come to a boil, reduce it down to a simmer, and let it go for, it says nearly an hour. It says maybe even an hour and a half. Of course, that's for 5 pounds, so we may not have to go that long. with 2.5 pounds. But it'll be a sticky, tomatoey mess of yummy stuff by the time we're done. So I'm going to take this over to the stove and we'll check back in a couple of times while it's cooking, and I'll keep you posted on the time that it goes. So we're going to bring this up to a boil. You can tell that there is a significant amount of liquid in here. So it will take a good long time for that to boil off. So I think that hour to hour and 15 minutes is probably pretty close, but we'll see. Meantime, I'm going to get my jars ready to go. All right, we're going to use the new steam canner today. This will be its second trip out, I think. So, you know, I'm late to the party on steam canners, but I was looking for a mid-size water bath canner. You know, I have a big stock pot and little rack that fits in the bottom that serves as my small size canner, and then I have the really monster water bath canner. And I've been lugging out the Presto electric canner to use as kind of my mid-size water bath canner, but this one is so much lighter. Oh my gosh, I bet it doesn't weigh, well, it's full of water now, but I bet it doesn't weigh 2 pounds. So anyway, this seemed like a really good idea at the time. I loved my first batch I did in here, turned out great. I did just some pickled hot peppers from the garden. So I'm looking forward to using this today, using it on the tomato jam. I think it's going to be a great addition to my kitchen, but I want some more practice with it first before I really give you the final verdict. All right, so I'm going to let this come to a boil, and then I'll keep it kind of at a very low boil, high simmer, and stir it every now and then we'll be back. This is about 20 minutes in with this sauce at a low boil. Still very liquidy, but oh my goodness, it's starting to smell fantastic. The boil, of course, keeps picking up on this as the liquid boils out, so you really want to keep an eye on that. I know it's hard to stand around and watch a pot boil for an hour and 15 minutes. But I am trying to get some other work done in the kitchen so I can stay nearby. We'll come back and check on this again in just a little bit. Okay, we are right at about 30 minutes now. I wanted you to see, I hope you can see the line where we started. And we are down, take a look at that, if you can see it, I don't know. We're down about half right now, maybe just a little more than half. Still pretty liquidy. So still too liquid to put into jars yet, but I think we're getting closer. So I'm going to get my jars into the canner and get that started heating up very gently. I don't think we're like imminent on this, but we're getting close. So I want to be ready. And then I have all my spoons to taste test. I'm so excited. I don't know. I don't know if we're going to need to add anything or not. The smell is just divine. The smell is really, really good. All right, so we'll be back. We'll let this keep going for a little bit. This is a very gentle boil. I kept having to turn it down because, as I said before, as you lose the liquid, the bubbling will pick up. So stay with it close enough that you can keep turning it down so you don't want it to stick to the bottom, because what a crazy mess that would be. All right, back in a few. Okay, we are right at an hour on this, and as you can see when I pull it back, you can see the pan in there. So the instructions say cook it until it is a sticky, jammy mess. So I don't know that this is really a sticky, jammy mess, but I think it's right. I don't want it to be like a paste coming out of the jar. So I'm going to jar this up. I did taste this. I'll take one more taste here. And there is some zip to it. So, you know, it'll mellow as it sits on the shelf, but since I haven't done this before, I can't tell you how much it's going to mellow. I'll bring you up here. Okay, so I'm going to taste this. I did taste it before, and there is some zip to it. So, you know, it'll mellow as it sits on the shelf, but if you're really not a fan of heat, you may cut back the red pepper flakes a bit. I don't know. It's hard to say how it's finally going to end up. It's probably going to be perfect because the recipe has so many 5-star reviews. but it does have some zip now. It's tasty though. It was really tasty. Okay, I'm gonna call that done. I'm gonna get the jars out of here. They are heated up, ready to go, and we'll get this, and we'll get the jars loaded. Okay, I probably have way too many jars in here. I was very optimistic. I don't think I'm gonna get as many jars as I have in here, but we'll see. Turn this off. I'm going to use these little 4-ounce jars, and I think we're going to do this in 1/2-inch headspace. Let's take a peek here. 1/4-inch headspace. And then we're going to process them in a water bath canner or steam canner for 20 minutes. Definitely going to be gorgeous jars sitting on the pantry shelf. Holy smokes. So do you have a steam canner? Yeah, I had the last one on the planet to get a steam canner. I kind of like it. The only thing different about it is that when you turn off the heat, instead of, taking off the lid like you do on a water bath canner and letting it sit for 5 minutes, you leave the lid on and let it sit for 5 minutes. And that 5 minutes is considered part of the processing time. So this probably reduced by almost 3/4. That I am going to get another one, I think. This is looking great. It's like a perfect 5 pints for me. So if you made the whole recipe and just let it cook down about as I did, it would be 5 half pints you would get if you were doing half pints. Which if you have more than 2 people in your family, that might be what you do. Bubbling. I think that headspace looks great on all of them. Maybe just a smidge more on this one. All right, now these are going to be some very sticky rims, so we're going to do a good job wiping them. I thought the sweetener was good in here. The recipe that I normally make that has some things in it that aren't good for canning, I could probably adjust it, but mine uses balsamic vinegar, which I think adds a really great flavor, but it would ruin this beautiful red color. So I hope that this is going to be a great substitute, because look, that color is just gorgeous. Just clean up my mess while I'm here. All right, let's get some lids on. So 2.5 pounds of tomatoes made 5 of these 1/4 pint jars, or 2.5 half pints. That was one of the easiest recipes ever. All you did was throw everything in the pot cook it down for it. It took exactly, well, it was like an hour and 1 minute or something when I stopped it. Okay. Yeah, the red is not really coming across on the camera. Sorry about that. All right, let's get these in here. I'm gonna bring you right over here. Okay, so I have these in the steam canner. Take that one out, I'm not gonna need it. Bring this back up to temperature. Okay, so here's my little gauge on top. I have to get that outer ring to that darkest green before I can start my timer. So that's based on my altitude. So you would follow whichever ring matches your altitude. And then as soon as that gets there, then I'm going to set the timer for 20 minutes. And then at 20 minutes, I'm going to turn the stove off and nothing else. I'm not going to remove any lids. We're going to let it sit for 5 minutes. And then we can take it out, and then I'll be back with you. All right, my timer has gone off. I'm excited to see this. We're going to take it out of the steam canner. Now, it processed for 20 minutes with the steam canner. The lid stayed on for the last 5 minutes after I turned the burner off. Whereas if you were doing it in a water bath canner, you would adjust your time for altitude, and then at the end of that time, you would take the lid off and let it cool down gently before you take the jars out. So mine have actually been in there. I have not seen them in 25 minutes, 20 minutes of processing time and 5 minutes of cool down. So let's see how we're looking. Do you want to open this away from you? Because I got a nice little steam bath the first time I did this. I could already hear them popping. I think they've all sealed already. I'm going to have to get a really good picture of this up close because it looks dark on the camera, but it is this beautiful, vibrant red. So I'll get a better picture for you. Now, I think these are going to be fun to use on a hamburger, French fries, dunking your sweet potato fries, maybe even just on a cracker with, I don't know, some mild cheese, you know, like a cream cheese or a goat cheese or something like that, I think would be fabulous. I'm going to take a really good picture of these. At least I'm going to try to take a really good picture of these. Okay, one more. Yeah, these have all sealed. All right, so I will do a taste test when these have had a chance to sit on the shelf for a while. It'll just be part of one of my cooking from the pantry shows. So if you're worried about the heat level, either wait for that, and I will tell you honestly what I think of the heat level, or maybe just cut back a little on the initial addition of the red pepper flakes. So I think that this is going to be a winner. It's going to be fun. It is so good to be canning tomatoes again. The season has started, and I am thrilled that this is happening in my kitchen. So I hope it's happening in your kitchen. Great to have you here as always. Please like the video, share, comment down below, say hey. Thanks so much for being here. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.